Degenerates reunite. We have the return of Biz back with us here today as we talk a little Hawkeye football. A thought of the non-conference. What did we see and what do we expect come Big Ten play? Plus, we'll make some picks all today. Locked On Hawkeye.
You are Locked On Hawkeyes, your daily podcast on the Iowa Hawkeyes. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And I'm Trent Condon, that's Biz, and this is the Locked On Hawkeyes podcast. Thanks for making Locked On Hawkeyes your first listen every day. We're available wherever you find podcasts. You can also watch us on YouTube. Hit subscribe while you're there. Helps us get in front of more Hawkeye fans. Today's episode is brought to you by Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Biz, good to see you again. It's been a couple of weeks after the first 2 weeks over at Kinnick Stadium. Took the week off last week for a little 10U softball, but ready to see the Hawkeyes in action again this weekend up in Minneapolis. How you doing?
Good. As I told you, I assumed my career as a podcaster was over. I assumed I'd retired at this point. So I assume Arkansas Alley probably had something to do with this. She was in town a couple weeks ago and asked me if we were ever going to do this again. I told her probably not. So I don't know if she reached out to you or was one of my 5 other fans in the world, but good to be back. Happy to chat and help out whenever I can. So.
No, it's all on me. This was just bad work out of me. Honestly, I just forgot and got so busy that I was like, oh yeah, during football season, we were doing a weekly podcast. We need to have that happen again. So I always enjoy talking football with you, obviously, Biz, and our conversations on the Hawkeyes. So for people that don't know, Jason and I grew up. He's a couple years older than me, together in college together, been friends for a really long time. And we look at Iowa a little bit differently from time to time. Sometimes I get a little bit more emotional than you do. You are, for the most part, pretty down the middle. And I consider myself probably on the better end of that spectrum, but you can take it to another level. This non-conference season has been inconsistent at best. We've seen 2 excellent halves of football from Iowa, an excellent quarter against Iowa State. And then there's been some lapses. And for me, kind of the crazy part about this is the lapses are just some places you don't normally expect. Giving up the long plays defensively, and not just giving up one, that's going to happen, but it's been multiple now throughout the course of the season. The back end of the defense, the special teams play on Saturday, the punting game that's obviously taken a step back with no more Tory Taylor. It's areas that I guess I normally don't anticipate we're going to see pretty major concerns, at least to this point in the non-conference. Your thoughts overall, Biz?
Yeah, I mean, I think you're right. It's been a bizarre 3 weeks because there's been some areas of inconsistency you just don't expect with Iowa football. But anybody that's listened to us in the past knows I'm a true football nerd when it comes to, line play. And I think line play, both sides, offense and defensive line, is what fuels Iowa football and always will. And I think when you look at both sides of the line, I think on the offensive side, I see a lot of positives. You and I, if people have listened to me in the past, I've been incredibly negative towards Iowa's offensive line the last few years. I just think they've been completely inept, and I'm sick and tired of hearing the same excuses over and over that they're young and that they're, inexperienced and, this and that and the other, and they're close, because they haven't been. They've been terrible the last few years. And so what we've seen these first 3 games is mostly very positive. Have they made their occasional just boneheaded, nobody touch anybody and get killed in the backfield plays? Absolutely. But I would say 90% of the plays, the offensive line has looked really good. And to me, that's the key to Iowa football. When our offensive line is clicking, we can be a capable offense even without a capable quarterback. And I think, unfortunately, again, we're going to have to admit that we probably don't have a capable quarterback. Cade McNamara is what he is at this point. He's not very good. He's an average to below average quarterback, and nothing that Brendan Sullivan has shown me has shown that he's any better at this point. So you got to lean on the line, and the offensive line has looked good. But on the flip side, I think the main reason we lost that Iowa State game was just complete inability to get any pressure whatsoever on Rocco Becht in the second half. He was able to sit back there and just pick us apart in the second half. And it doesn't matter how good your back seven is. If you can't get pressure on the quarterback, you're going to eventually wear down. And that's what happened. And so, I mean, just looking at the lines, that to me is the key going forward. Can the offensive line keep it up and continue to be as good as they have been when it comes to Big Ten play? Because if they have, I think our offense can be serviceable. On the flip side, defensive line, I mean, obviously against Troy, they look better. But they've got to be better than they were against Iowa State. I mean, Iowa State's offensive line was supposed to be one of their weak spots. And I think probably will be one of their weak spots going forward. And they completely neutralized a defensive line that's got a ton of experience. And so, that's the key to me. Can the two lines, can the offensive line keep it up, and can the defensive line improve? Because, the other parts of the game, I'm not worried about the giving up the big plays. Phil Parker will figure that out. I'm sure Phil was about ready to have a heart attack the last couple of weeks. That'll get figured out. Iowa football is what it is. We've seen in Phil Parker for 25 years, and I trust that part is just an anomaly and will get fixed. We're not going to be giving up big plays every game for the next 8-9 games. That'll get fixed. So, to me, the O-line, D-line is the big question. Where do those things go going forward?
I think it's a good way to look at it. And they go 7 deep on Saturday against Troy. Didn't even see kind of those deeper rotational pieces. Brian Allen, he certainly showed some juice, and we're seeing more consistency out of him. Max Llewellyn also helping out. And Jeremiah Pittman, if he can just be adequate as a backup defensive tackle, give them 15, 20 snaps a game, be able to give both Graves and Y.A. Black a little bit of a break out there, a series here and there. I think that's going to go a long ways with this squad. The offense as a whole, I'll talk about quarterback, obviously, with McNamara and Sullivan, and that's been a big conversation piece going back to even last week. But this offense, it looks a lot different. It really does. And you see what they're doing with the blocking schemes, the red zone inefficiency against Iowa State. That was a big headliner as well. But I'm liking the early returns. I'm liking what we're seeing. It's a scheme that I think makes a lot of sense for what Iowa is and what Iowa wants to do. And it's adding elements to the game, just simple couple of RPO plays, things like that. And I still think there's more that can be unleashed. And that what gives me some optimism still with this squad, because we haven't seen a ton of the jet sweep motion. We haven't seen some of the other elements that have been there, but they've just been in small doses. I think there's still upside for this Iowa offense. And if McNamara is just okay with improved offense and offensive scheme, they're going to be all right against, those midweights, right? The Wisconsins, the Nebraskas, teams like that are good defensively, Michigan States of the world, they're going to be okay. Do you see the same thing?
Yeah, well, you mentioned the midweights. It's funny, Trent, because, for years, people have ripped on the Big Ten West and talked about how Iowa's schedule has been relatively easy. Well, for one last year, we've still got that. I mean, you look at our schedule, if we can pull out the win this Saturday, and assuming we lose at Ohio State, there's absolutely no reason we're not going to be favored in 5 straight games after that. I mean, we play 5 very, very mediocre opponents leading up to the Nebraska game. I mean, Wisconsin seems to be average at best. Maryland seems to be average at best. And then the other 3, Michigan State, Washington, and UCLA, are all 3 in complete rebuilding projects right now. I know Michigan State's looked better than people expected, but you got to beat those 3 teams because they're all 3 completely rebuilding. Are they going to be good in a year or 2? Maybe, probably. But right now, I mean, this is the window for Iowa football. And that's why, to me, this Saturday is so unbelievably important because, I mean, you really can't overestimate the importance of Saturday's game because you lose it, you're looking at probably being 2-3. And really your season, for all the hopes you had and the goals you had, are kind of out the window before the end of September. You win it, and every goal you had still there. Are you disappointed about the Iowa State loss? Absolutely. But every goal's still there. You can still win the Big Ten title. You can still be a playoff contender all the way down to the end. I mean, if we're 8-2 going into those last 2 games at Maryland and home versus Nebraska, we're going to be in the conversation. We'll probably be in the top 12 at that point, but we'll be a top 20 team and at least have hope going down the stretch. So, I mean, Saturday is incredibly, incredibly important for Iowa football. So, I mean, we got to find a way to win this game on Saturday.
We'll get into the Minnesota game a little bit more. We'll also talk about the quarterback play and give business thoughts as we saw Brendan Sullivan, the red zone package. And Kirk said yesterday that we'll see if we're going to increase that a little bit more and see him maybe in more situations, 3rd and 1, 4th and 1, and the like. We'll talk about the quarterback play as we continue, as this is the Locked On Hawkeyes podcast. Today's episode of Locked On Hawkeyes is brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook. You've heard us talk a lot about FanDuel. It's America's #1 sportsbook. Well, we have something a little bit different for you. Now through September 22nd, all FanDuel customers, that's right, both new and returning customers, can bet $5 and get a 3-week free trial of NFL Sunday Ticket from YouTube and YouTube TV. Then with the YouTube-based TV plan, you'll be able to watch every regular season Sunday afternoon out-of-market game. All you need is a Google account and a current form of payment you can cancel at any time. Bet $5, a 3-week free trial of NFL Sunday Ticket. Taking a look at the matchups this week, of course, Iowa, Minnesota. Hawkeyes are currently a 2.5-point favorite in that one against the Gophers, with an over-under sitting at 36 at the FanDuel Sportsbook. Just visit FanDuel.com to download America's #1 sportsbook. Today's episode of Locked On Hawkeyes is also brought to you by Gametime and the Gametime app. Gametime has this new feature. It's called Gametime Picks. It makes getting tickets to your favorite live events even easier. Gametime Picks filters out the fluff, show you incredible deals on great seats, so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of different tickets that are out there. Maybe you're taking the trip north like I am. Download the Gametime app. See exactly where you're going to sit before you buy. I love the seat views before you buy. Know you're going to be in the stadium, maybe a little bit of rain in Minneapolis, want to get one of those overhang seats. You can do that on the Gametime app. And all-in pricing. Toggling this feature shows the total up front. No more surprise fees at checkout. Absolutely love the all-in pricing on the Gametime app. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONCollege, LOCKEDONCOLLEGE for $20 off. Download Gametime today. What time is it? Gametime. Trent and Biz back with you once again on the Locked On Hawkeyes podcast. Thanks for making Locked On Hawkeyes your first listen every day. Biz, the quarterback conundrum happening in Iowa City. You mentioned it. Cade McNamara, he's not great, but if he could just be okay. And what we saw Saturday was okay. The completion percentage was through the roof, but he's also aided a diving catch by Jacob Gill, a low pass to Luke Lachey. He missed some throws as well, but overall, we see a guy that he's not making mistakes. If he can make the makeables out there, it's something we've been begging for the last 4 years. And they can get it, I think, from McNamara, but I know Brendan Sullivan is intriguing for a lot of people. How about you?
Yeah, I mean, I'm so tired of the conversation of quarterback. I'm ready to move forward with Cade and just stick with it. But here's the thing, to me, what I liked about Cade McNamara last year is I thought he just had an arrogance and a confidence about him that you need at quarterback. I thought that was always one of Spencer Petrus's biggest flaws. He just didn't seem very confident and didn't seem to be willing to, he didn't have much belief in himself sometimes, I'm not sure. But Cade had an arrogance about him. And I think up until halftime of that Iowa State game, he was starting to get that arrogance back. You saw the second half of the opener, he played great. And then the first half against Iowa State, playing well. And then all of a sudden they come out, he throws one of the worst passes you'll ever see to start the second half into triple coverage, 5 yards short, crossed his body across the field. And from that point forward, he seems to have kind of lost that moxie. And the rest of that Iowa State game, he looked timid. And I thought last week, he looked fine, but he also didn't look, he didn't have that confidence level I like to see about him. So what I hope, he has plenty of experience going into big places and winning games. At Michigan, he won games on the road. He wanted Iowa State to start last year, and it wasn't always pretty, but he's handled it well. So I think he needs to be the quarterback because I think he has the ability to go on the road and put us in decent situations. So I hope we get to see that confidence and moxie back a little bit because I worry he just hasn't looked. I don't know if he's still slightly injured or what the deal is, but he just doesn't seem to have that swagger that he when he has. I think he's a different quarterback. So to me, I don't see it as a controversy. Cade's our quarterback. Move on. But I do like what we did with Sullivan last week. I think bringing him in for that package. I think it provides something different, but I don't see that package expanding.
Another component to this is I think there's some people out there that believe that you see the weak arm from Cade McNamara and think that, the backup's got to have a stronger arm than that. That's not Brendan Sullivan's strength. If you look at his time in Northwestern, you go back and watch even his best game that he had against Maryland, that's not his strength either. He is a physical runner. He has that ability, and he can make the makeables himself. But if you think that suddenly you're going to get some kind of gunslinger that's going to be able to chuck it down the field, that's not Brendan Sullivan's game either. So I think some people maybe have this different picture, this different version of what Brendan Sullivan actually is as a quarterback. And that's just not the reality of what he is. So that's a huge conversation. I think you nailed it, though. This is our guy. Cade McNamara is going to be the guy. And I maintain, if I was going to hit the heights this year, and they're already kind of working behind the eight ball a little bit with the loss to Iowa State, but if they're going to have a special 10-2 type of season, I still believe Cade McNamara is the quarterback that gives them the best chance to get there. I don't see that kind of upside with Brendan Sullivan.
Well, the ironic thing is, Trent, if you're that fan complaining about arm strength, then I guess you must have loved Deacon Hill and Spencer Petras, because they had arm strength out the wazoo. They couldn't do anything else. Yep. They can throw it a long ways. So I don't know. To me, at the college level, I don't really care about arm strength all that much. I care about the ability to get into the right play and the ability to make the simple plays. And right now, my biggest worry with Cade McNamara is his accuracy is terrible. Like, when's the last time you saw him just hit somebody in stride, in rhythm? I guess the one throw to Weechin last week was a good one where Weechin got to go. But I mean, you most of the catches right now, there's not a lot of yards after catch right now. It's diving and having to make difficult catches on plays that probably shouldn't be that difficult. So I mean, his accuracy is just not where it needs to be for somebody who's a 6-year quarterback at this point. So because I think, watching the last few games, I think the scheme is better, and I think we do a better job of getting guys open in space a little bit. Now we just got to hit them in space so they get things moving. I mean, you touched on it earlier. I think through 3 games, I'd give Tim Lester a solid B as an offensive coordinator. I think he's put us in a lot of good situations. And has he been perfect? No, but I think I think we've seen more people open and in space and given us more opportunities in the passing game than we have in multiple years. And part of that's due to the fact that I think both Van Der Zee and Gill are better than what we had for options last year. But I'm really impressed with Jacob Gill. I think he can be a fully capable option for the next couple of years. Is he a superstar? No, but he's certainly he certainly looks the part some better than some of the other wide receivers. He can actually run a route and make a catch, which we've had difficulty doing those things in the past.
A real high bar, a wide receiver room over the last half decade for the Iowa football team. All right, Biz, let's come back here and let's talk about my favorite rivalry game on the schedule every year for Iowa. It's the matchup against the Gophers, playing for the Pig. What Phil Fleck has up there, we'll talk about the matchup, make a pick in the game, and have something intriguing for the people out there outside of the state of Iowa. We'll talk about that as we continue here on Locked On Hawkeyes. Today's episode of Locked On Hawkeyes is brought to you by Roy. Hawkeye fans, have you heard about Roy? It stands for Return on You. It's a new platform that lets you, the fans, get involved in NIL like never before by making contributions directly to your favorite athletes. By supporting players directly, you can help shape rosters, retain talent, and keep your favorite athletes out of the transfer portal. As you all know, NIL has changed the game for athletes. Roy changes the NIL game for fans. No risk contributions. Fans' contributions are securely held and are only distributed if the athlete makes a decision that aligns with your fan support. If not, the money is returned to the fan. How about this? Engage with athletes on their NIL journey. By using Roy, fans not only support athletes financially, but also become part of their name, image, and likeness NIL journey, helping them succeed on and off the field. Download Roy on iOS or Android and enter the referral code. It's Locked On. You'll automatically be entered into a sweepstakes to win $5,000 cash. Visit joinroy.com for additional details. No purchase necessary. Void where prohibited. Get the Roy app on iOS or Android and start making an impact on your favorite team. Use referral code Locked On for that opportunity to win $5,000 cash. Visit joinroy.com for more details. No purchase necessary. Void where prohibited. Get off the sidelines and get into the NIL game with Roy. Back with you one final time here on the Locked On Hawkeyes podcast. Trent and Biz cutting it up, talking a little Hawkeye football as we make our way into Big Ten play. It opens with a road trip up north to take on the Gophers. Biz, a couple of North Iowa guys. I know you love the matchup with Floyd every year as well.
Yeah, well, and I know you despise PJ probably more than any human on earth. So I will say he has really rejuvenated this rivalry. I've always loved the Iowa-Minnesota rivalry, but now that you have Fleck there, it really adds an extra level of spice to it and just hatred in general, because he's so easy to hate. I mean, he's just somebody that his arrogance makes it pretty easy for him to dislike. But on the flip side, he's also made them very competitive. And so it's very, every game against them is a battle. And it'll be a battle on Saturday also. But if there's one person on earth that hates Phil Fleck more than you, it may be Kirk Ferentz. And that's always, to me, the huge thing with this rivalry game is Ferentz hates him. I mean, despises him. And we always come ready to play against Minnesota because of that. I mean, we always talked about, I wish Ferentz would have found a way to hate, what the hell's the name? The old Purdue coach who's now at Louisville, Brom.
Oh, Brom.
He didn't hate Brom, and so he struggled against Purdue. He didn't seem to hate Fitzgerald, and so he struggled against Northwestern. But, he despises Fleck. And so the combination of what happened last year plus his general hatred of PJ leads me to believe we're going to come ready to play on Saturday.
Last year, that's going to be a component. That one rankled Kirk for a long time, and he can definitely see that one. Yeah, I think this is not going to be like we saw Saturday. I don't know if it was overlooking the opponent, a hangover, whatever it is. This is going to be a locked-in team. This is going to be a team that is ready to go. Will they be good enough? Will fluky things happen? Look, that's football. As Kirk famously said back in 2014, weird things can happen at that one. But I really like Iowa's opportunity in this one. In the last couple of weeks, Minnesota with a couple of shutouts against a couple of tomato cans. You don't read a ton into that. But they're going to be like Minnesota's built themselves into. And as much as I hate the carnival barking aspect of Phil Fleck, as a football coach, there's actual substance behind what he is. He is not just one of those guys that is all flash and no substance. He's a football coach. He does have that acumen, and he's built Minnesota in a way that if the Gophers are going to compete, that's how you have to build Minnesota. They're going to be huge up front on the offensive line. They're going to be attacking defensively. This is a matchup, and there's a reason these games have been so close throughout the years. They match up well with Iowa, and they do some things that have given Iowa trouble here. This is not one where Iowa can just show up and think they're going to get the victory. They're going to also have to play well on Saturday.
Oh, definitely. But I think we match up well with them also, because the one thing, our defense, when you look at our defense and everybody's, jumping on the fact that the three big plays that we've given up, and rightfully so, that's not Iowa football, and that Iowa State put up over 200 yards on us in the second half. But the one constant for the Iowa defense through 3 games is run defense. Our run defense has been great.
Yeah.
And you look at Minnesota's run game, I don't think it's as good as it was a couple of years ago. They haven't exactly ran the ball down the throat on some pretty mediocre teams. I'm not sure they've had a game yet where they've ran for 200 yards rushing, which that used to be kind of an automatic with Minnesota. So, and the other thing is, I don't think, we've struggled with really athletic, quick wide receivers. We saw that last week. We saw that against the Clones. I watched pretty much all of that Minnesota-North Carolina game. The Gophers wide receivers are very, very mediocre this year. I just don't see a wide receiver on that team that they're going to be able to, to exploit like they have the last couple of weeks against us. So I think we match up well against them also. But it's going to come down to, it's going to be your classic Iowa-Minnesota game, which team can get to 21 points first. If we can score 21 points, we'll win the game.
Yeah, I think it's as simple as that. I think you nailed it. Well, let's get into our pick of the game, brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook. 2.5 currently the number in this one. I mentioned an intriguing number out there. So I heard this in passing. Here in the state of Iowa, for people, and we got plenty of people outside of the state, if you're into sports wagering, you cannot bet on individual player props for in-state athletes. So that means Caleb Johnson rushing or Cade McNamara passing touchdown, things like that. They're not available in the state, but they are available outside the state. Last week, the over-under for Caleb Johnson against Troy rushing yards was 100. Obviously, he surpassed that one against one of the worst rush defenses in America. For this week, the number for Caleb Johnson is 80. Again, not available here in the state of Iowa, but is available outside of the state. Boy, that's an intriguing number. And certainly if Iowa gets there, talk about a same game parlay, correlated parlay there. Caleb Johnson over 80 yards and Iowa on the money line. That seems like a pretty good 1-2 punch.
So you saying you reached out to our friend Melt in Illinois and had him play some bets for you? Is that what the moral of the story is?
It's not a bad idea. I like how you're thinking over there. Yeah, absolutely. But that number, I don't know. I guess I just thought it'd be a little bit higher. I thought it'd be, approaching 90 yards, something like that. Minnesota's run defense is usually pretty good, but with the improvements we've seen, certainly in run blocking the last couple of years, Caleb Johnson gets even 20 carries. I think he's going to get to 80, don't you?
Yeah, I mean, if I had to bet it, I would take the over. I don't love it though either. I mean, I think Minnesota's going to sell out on stopping the run, and they're going to force us to do anything other than. And I think they're sound enough. I mean, the thing with Caleb Johnson is, I like Caleb Johnson. I think he's a very good running back. I don't think he's a star running back because I don't think he does a very good job of making 2-yard carries into 4 or 5-yard carries.
He's been better this year.
He's better. Yes, I'll give him credit. He's better. But I don't think that's his game. Mm-hmm. And so I don't think he's going to grind out a 24-carry, 89-yard performance. He's either going to have 17 carries for 150 or 17 carries for 52. Yeah. And it all comes down to, does he bust 1 or 2 or 3 of them? Mm-hmm. Because as we've seen, if you give him a straight line crease, he's going to hit it. He's going to get 30 every time. I mean, he is phenomenal at that. I mean, he glides through that hole about as smooth as you can get. I saw somebody compare him to my all-time favorite running back on earth, Eric Dickerson. I mean, the reason I'm a Rams fan is because of Eric Dickerson, and I'm not in any way comparing him to him, but they do have that same upright kind of gliding running style. And so when he gets the hole, he's going to make it. He's going to make some. He's going to go for 30 every time. But the question is, can he go for 6 when it's not there? And so. If I had to bet it, would I take the over? Yes, but I don't love it the way you do. So I'm not going to be going over state lines to make the bets. But
yeah, and you're a little bit closer to a state line than I am here, right in the middle of the state. All right, 2.5 is the number. I'll be honest. I think it's going to come down to the wire. I think this is a coin flip type of game, and because of that, I'll grab the points. I'll grab the 2.5. I know people are sitting there waiting for, can we get a 3 if you're on the Minnesota side of things? I'm happy taking this. I wouldn't be surprised if this thing's 17-16, 20-19, something in that range. I think it comes down to the wire, and in a game that I believe is going to be that close and that tight, I'll grab the points.
Yeah, this is the ultimate homer pick. Give me the Hawks, and the main reason why is, Trent, as the optimistic Iowa fan, this team's got too much experience and too much heart. I mean, I think there's a lot of guys that came back with huge expectations this year. It's rare to see so many. And I mean, we've never seen this before because of COVID, but you've never seen a team with this many 5th and 6th year seniors. And I just think they're going to go up there and play with a ton of heart, because I certainly am not ready for this season to be a complete disappointment in September. And I'm sure as hell thinking they're not either. And so, the Iowa State game was heartbreaking. I think it, probably doesn't surprise me. There was a hangover last week, but I think we're going to get to see the best the Hawks have to offer on Saturday. I think they're going to come out ready to play. And, again, this is the homer in me, but I think when the Hawks play their best, they're better than Minnesota. And so that I think we're going to see a good performance by Iowa on Saturday, and I think we'll see a cover. So, but again, that might just be me wishful thinking and thinking, please, let's, I want to have a fun year and not a year where we're talking about what could have been. So,
oh, absolutely. 2-2 would not feel very good come Saturday night. With that, Biz,
it's also me, Trent. I mean, I said it earlier, but this is Iowa's window. I mean, we're going to be a rebuilding team next year. Yep. Our schedule's only going to get harder down the road. As an Iowa fan, you and I know better than anyone. With the new 12-team playoff, we're going to be in a position to get in the playoff. And history tells us maybe once every 8 to 10 years, we've got an opportunity. And this year's the opportunity. It really is. I mean, it's a window where we can be in the conversation in mid to late November. But to be in that conversation, we absolutely 100% have to win on Saturday. Then we have to go acquit ourselves decent at Ohio State. We don't have to win.
Right.
We just have to be in the ball game, so that when people look back and say, well, you lost a heartbreaker at Iowa State, you lost there's no bad losses in there. And you can say our 10-2 matches up against LSU's 10-2, or somebody else is 10-2. So to get there, you have to win on Saturday. And I just think we're going to be locked in and ready to go. So, but again, that may just me looking at it with gold colored glasses. So.
Biz, good to catch up again. Good talking with you. You'll be in Minnesota. I'll be in Minnesota, though. I think our agendas are a little bit different coming up this weekend. Enjoy the cross country.
Yeah, I say I'll be in Minnesota to watch 15 minutes of pure excitement at the girls cross country, and then not seeing the Iowa game. But I'll be back home on my couch in time for that. So
well, good to hear that you don't sound real bitter about it.
No, bring home the pig, Trent.
We will, absolutely. Biz, we'll talk to you again next week, and thanks for jumping on again. I'll remember to send you an invite next week too. Okay.
I'll be ready when you call me in 2025. So.
That's Biz joining us here. This is the Locked On Hawkeyes podcast. Thanks for making Locked On Hawkeyes your first listen every day. Biz is on the Hawks. I'm on the Gophers, and the 2.5 coming up this weekend. We will be back with you tomorrow. Still a lot more coming up. We will dive deeper into the matchup, the importance of this one, and also a little basketball news we haven't got to this week. We'll do that as we continue. Thanks for making Locked On Hawkeyes your first listen every day. We'll talk to you again tomorrow. Go Hawks.